and get started. It's 9 o'clock.
Shame on you.
We'll go ahead and get started. Don't bring it together, okay. All right. We are now holding a joint meeting of the City of Fellsmere, City of Vero Beach, Indian River County, Town of Indian River Shores, Water and Sewer Infrastructure Agenda. At this time, we'll start with the invocation, and I'll give that, and that'll be followed by the pledge by Mr. Kenyon, Mayor Kenyon. Okay, please rise. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity we have to come here today and to make some decisions and to get some consensus about direction for the future of Indian River County and the municipalities therein. Please help us to use your guidance and your wisdom in the decisions that we make. In your name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Play ball.
All right, thank you. All right, at this time we'll start with the introductions, and I will start over here with Mayor Adams, and just work your way around the circle.
Susan Adams, Mayor, City of Fellsmere. Sorry.
Jason Unamaker, City Manager, City of Fellsmere.
Franny Atchison, Town of Indian River Shores Council.
Bill Aarons, Vice Mayor, Shores. Bill Kenyon, Mayor of Indian River Shores.
Jerry White, Town Councilman, Indian River Shores.
Mike Oxner, Town Councilman, Indian River Shores.
Gary, it's your turn.
Oh, thank you, Wesley. Gary Wheeler, Indian River County Commission.
Wesley Davis, Indian River County Commission.
Joe Fletcher, Indian River County Commission.
Bob Solari, Indian River County Commission. Peter O'Brien, Indian River County Commission.
Deborah Froman, Council, City of Vero Beach.
Tom White, Vice Mayor, City of Vero Beach.
Steve Avon, Mayor, City of Vero Beach.
Kevin Sonic, Vero Beach City Council.
Bill Fish, Vero Beach City Council.
Jim Gabbard, City Manager Group.
Charlie Vatunak, City Attorney, Vero Beach.
We do thank you very much. I certainly do appreciate everybody being here. And that's also a very subtle way of seeing to it that all the microphones are working. So now that we know that everybody's microphones are on, we'll now, with that, yeah, I'll really introduce staff. I see the County Administrator Joe Baird in the back, and the County Attorney Will Collins, and Assistant County Manager Mike Zito. I'm going to leave somebody out. I see Misty and Darcy in the back. Ladies, thank you for setting this up. Our Budget Director Jason Brown, Mike Hotchkiss and Eric Olson with our Utilities Department. Hey, good morning, Chester. Town of Indian River Shores, their council. Everybody knows Chester Clem in the back. Appreciate you being here this morning, Chester. Anybody else that I left off? Any other city staff, Chief? Okay. I got mine to you. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. We'll go straight into the meat of the program. Yes. Go ahead, Mayor.
Okay. In the interest of possibly shortening up this meeting a little bit, I refer to your coming before our council a couple of weeks ago, and as a result, I've come up with a proposal here, which I hope satisfies your recommendation, your wishes. Just over 2 weeks ago, the county notified the city that this meeting would be held today, but provided no backup of what would be discussed. Since Chairman Davis was already scheduled to come to our next city council meeting, held October 3rd, we used that occasion to ask him about the topic of today's meeting. Chairman Davis said several times that all we wanted from the city was an indication whether the city might be interested in investigating consolidation, cooperation, or partnership of our water, wastewater, and reuse systems. Although all 5 of our city council members agreed that such an investigation should be pursued, no formal vote was taken. Therefore, I would like to make a motion that accordingly, as requested by the county, I move that the City of Vero Beach agree to participate in the process of obtaining an independent consultant to investigate the consolidation, cooperation, or partnership, and that a Consultants Competitive Negotiation Act committee be appointed consisting of 2 members each from Indian River County, the Town of Indian River Shores, the City of Vero Beach, and that the committee bring back a recommendation for a consultant with a scope of work and price. The 3 jurisdictions could then reconvene to consider the committee recommendation. Now I'm making that as a motion for our city council.
Second.
I have a second. Is there any further discussion or any discussion among us?
Actually, could we get the opinion of Mr. Davis, is this...
Quite frankly, that's about where I think I wanted to wind up. I mean, that was clearly the intent. Commissioner Williams?
I think that, possibly we may need a consultant on this. I don't know that I know enough about it to say that we do. I understand there's 3 franchise agreements. I've not seen any of them at this point. And I think it'd be more expeditious and financially better off if our staffs, which I thought they were doing, would get together and come back with their different scenarios or synopsis of what we've got, and we all have a chance to look at this, listen to our staff members, and find out if there's something here where we need to hire a consultant and pay that money. Where maybe we can all agree on something if we all know what's going on. And I don't know that any member of the elected body, and I don't know that they don't or do, have a in-depth knowledge of these franchise agreements and all the ins and outs. I don't, and I think that before we spend a lot of money for a consultant, we ought to see if there's a need for a consultant, and until we look at it and get reports from staff, I don't know that I can make that decision.
Okay, well, we can include that recommendation in the motion here and add that before we have any consultants or consideration of consultants, that we have the staffs meet and discuss what they have and come up with ideas, prices, so forth, and then we can, among us or independently as well, figure out a way to what's the next step. But I agree, and that's what I have said every time anything like this has come up. The staff should work together and come up with the costs, the figures, what can be done, what are the benefits, and none of that has been done today.
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I would disagree with the notion that we should start with staff, simply because we have essentially 2 competing interests here. We've got the county and we've got the city, who both have these facilities, and the only way we're going to get sort of the straight dope on the thing is if we have a third party.
I understand your logic on that, and I think that it could be, I mean, in the process of this, I think it should be a trust but verify situation, and I think that I would, if I were, and I said this at the meeting at the cities, if I were to come, or our county staff were to come forward with an idea or presentation on the utilities, I would be, if I were in the city's position, I'd be suspect, and vice versa, and I don't want us to have to be constantly looking over each other's shoulder in this process. I would just assume take it out of our realm of discussion and expertise and have somebody answer the question about should we consolidate. If we can't consolidate, yes, then what would it cost for the county to be able to serve those residents outside the city limits of Vero Beach and the Southern Barrier Island, and then once I determine what that's going to cost, then determine what that's going to equate in a water value to the Southern Barrier Island residents and water, sewer, and irrigation, and then I can make my decision on that. And like I said at your meeting, in the event that it winds up that you're doing it faster, better, and cheaper, my hat off to you unless you sign another extension with the contract. But right now, I don't have that answer, and I need those answers to be able to move forward. I have what my staff is saying. They've got presentations. They've given them to me, and at the same time, I don't know how much validity that's going to carry in the city council's eyes, not just with the city of Vero Beach, but I'd also just very similar to what Michael just said. Yes, Mr. Webb.
I was under the impression that the city and the county have been having discussions about this.
Not true.
And the problem is if you all haven't even seen the franchise agreements, save the chairman, and that was our point when Chairman came to our meeting, to get everybody up to where we are. We've reviewed the franchises, where there's more out there. I mean, every day, I think right now I've got about 5.
I've got staff ready to do that.
Well,
I really, if y'all want to see that, that's fine. I would have much.
But does everybody?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I think it was back in late August, all 5 of the county commissioners, sometime in that time frame, had a meeting with, I met with Mayor Abel, City Manager Gabbard, their attorney Vacinek, and then their various utility directors. And in my discussion with them, they committed to having the staffs work together, and I think they committed that same philosophy to all of you. Why we're here today, though, is in early September, Rob Holton came before the Board of Commission and said, council has only given us the authority to discuss wastewater. They have not given us the authority to discuss water. And I think from the county's point of view, we thought it was water and wastewater on the table. And so we're here today, and hopefully the mayor's motion includes water. And I think we're all ready to move forward to have the staff work together. But Mr. Holton came before us and said, I've not been given the authority to talk about water. So we're here today to find out if water's on the table or not.
Mr. Mayor, water is included in the motion.
Okay.
And,
I'm sorry, Mayor, just 1 second. Go ahead.
At the time that, I guess that Rob may have come before you, the only issue on the table at that time was wastewater.
Well, that wasn't my discussions.
Well, no,
we talked about water.
That was the only thing we had heard of at that point. So, you know, yeah, we told him to talk about wastewater because that's what was
wastewater
out there.
to the utilities.
What I talked to him was water and wastewater.
Mayor? Yes.
There are two producers of water and sewer, the county and the city. We're customers. So when you have these get-togethers, you have to remember that. We're not producing anything. We're buying services. And our participation in this thing is important to us because even though you talk about 2016, the fact of the matter is we're going to have to make a decision within the next 2 years. Mm-hmm. And we're going to have to decide whether we're staying with our current suppliers or go forward. So we're very interested in what you're doing. And when it all comes down to the bottom line, you have to recognize what you're talking about is money. How much are you willing to give up? Or how much are you willing to give up? And that's not our decision. That's your decision, and you're going to have to answer to your constituents for that.
And Bill, that's why my motion says to have the Consultants Competitive Negotiation Act Committee be appointed, consisting of 2 members each from the county, the shores, and the city of Vero Beach. And the issues would be discussing consolidation, cooperation, and partnership, and it has to do with water, wastewater, and reuse. And that's why I came up with this motion, and we have a motion, a second, and unless there's any further discussion among us, I'd like to have a vote on that among us.
Yeah, just very briefly. I mean, obviously the whole point of the study is to see if it's in the financial interest of the city of Vero Beach to consolidate or whatever the consultants actually want to do. But obviously, any decisions we make is going to be in the best interest of the people of the city of Vero Beach and making sure that we can provide service at the highest level, but also at the cheapest cost. So even though we may be spending money on this consulting, it's for the long run in the future the best interest for the city.
Do any council members have any further comments?
No, call the question.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye. Yeah.
Opposed?
That's under
unanimous.
One more thing. Is that with the amendment that Commissioner Wheeler had stated?
We'll start out with the way the motion was originally, and then see what those
Mayor,
to do and how to do.
Mayor, that's quite frankly, I mean, that just jumped basically to the end of the agenda, which I have no problem with. That was clearly all I wanted to get together, but I couldn't very well make this decision without knowing where the city of Vero Beach was and understanding the needs publicly of the city of Indian River Shores. And at this time, if there's, yes, Ms. Fleming.
I mean, are you all, we made our motion.
I'm ready. Yes.
You all?
Commissioner Sorry.
I'm happy to make a motion.
Okay.
I've been spending a lot of time on this since the beginning of the year, and I'm very happy that we finally arrived at this point. I think that a good study by an independent third party would be in the best interest of all the citizens of Indian River County. One comment on the city side indicated by the comment by Mr. Sarnik indicated a little Vero focus, but I'd like the study to be open, considering the best interests of all the county residents, including those in the city of Vero Beach, but outside the city of Vero Beach would be affected by this, and of course including Indian River Shores. And that said, I'll move on the part of Indian River County a motion that we hire a third-party consultant under the same terms as that Mayor Abel outlined, and submit that as a motion. Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Is now open for discussion. Commissioner Blair.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I just want to revert back to an earlier comment about our discussion in the city of Vero Beach. I did have the opportunity to have that same meeting, And I just want to bring to your attention that during my discussion, independently, we did speak about water and wastewater as well. And as a matter of fact, I want to refer back to a comment made about an event that happened during the hurricanes where there was a request or offer to open up the interconnect. And that discussion about water was very valid, although it was brief. And we also brought in the contract that, although we could not negotiate that contract, the discussion about the Indian River Shores contract as well. So my recollection was a lengthy discussion about wastewater and water, and they both were discussed at the table.
Yes, we did discuss water a little bit, but on the other hand, the issue that was out in the public before this, where Rob, I think, was referring to, was the wastewater issue. And you remember that? We went to Rob was there, the taxpayers meeting, and presentations before your board and presentations before our Utilities Commission. So at that point, wastewater was the only issue that was being discussed, even
but potable water was discussed at the meeting in the city of Vero Beach that we had.
Individual meetings, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'd like to make a motion among our group here.
Mayor, hold on one second. But we haven't voted yet.
All right.
But Commissioner Wheeler has something.
Yeah, the only thing that I would like to say, and I'll support the motion simply based on what Councilman Swalnick said. Sonic?
Yeah, that's correct.
Sonic? It concerns me a little bit when you say what's good for the city of Vero Beach, because I think you should be looking at what's good for the customer base, for the services you provide in or outside the city.
Right, okay, the city of Vero Beach and the city of Vero Beach ratepayers.
Okay. Yeah.
And and this doesn't, forgive me, I don't want to muddy the water with the city of Vero Beach here now. I would like to, in the process of doing this, we've had some consideration with the city of Fellsmere as far as providing water and sewer, and I don't know whether we have any irrigation reuse to the east side of 95. But in the event that we are looking at a countywide consolidation, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot with without having a quorum here, but I would also like to see I'd like to see us partnership with them in providing some water, sewer, and irrigation services in the future if it can be. And I don't know if it can be. I don't know logistically whether it fits. But y'all are one of the other municipalities that has sewer or water only, if I'm not mistaken. Y'all don't have sewer. Is that correct?
We have transmission and distribution, and we've got a franchise agreement with the county for treatment.
Okay.
We do have our own discrete water plant. And y'all have previously given unanimous consent for us to work with your utilities department. And I anticipate after the first of the year, we're probably going to be able to pursue that more vigorously.
Okay. And I think if we're going to look at it logistically from a study standpoint, if we could incorporate that into at least our side, not that to me that's worth it for the county to look at. Not trying to push that on any of the other municipalities, but I think looking at it again more not just to the east, but also the opportunity to look to the west would be very appropriate for us to look at a countywide, regional water, sewer, and irrigation reuse. And
I think that's something the rest of the council would support as well.
okay, great. Okay. Any further comments or questions, Commissioners? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. That motion passes unanimously. Mr. Kenyon, Mayor Kenyon.
We'd like to make a motion to concur with Vero's motion and the county's motion for consultants, evaluation consultants on these issues of water, wastewater, sewer.
Second motion.
All in favor?
If I might.
Wait a minute, discussion.
I certainly agree with the notion of consolidation and of hiring a third-party consultant. I would like to put some sort of a timetable in there. So I know that Mayor Abel has said that he wanted to establish a commission, and I don't want that to take too long before we get. So if we could maybe put a time limit or a.
And again, this is a whole new area for me. Seems like everything we delve into really deep, I become an expert at the end of it, but going into it, I don't know a thing about it. So I don't, how much should we allocate as far as time? Anybody, but I think that's legitimate what he's saying, yes.
We could do it concurrently.
have the staff work on it while we are hiring a consultant at the same time. We don't have to do it in step motion, do it concurrently. Through the CCNA process, as far as us doing an RFQ, which I imagine this would be probably versus an RFP, in that, what kind of a time frame, Mr. Petunik, are we looking at?
I think you should allow up to 3 months to get the advertisements and the selection committee, and then bring them back to each of the 3 jurisdictions involved. But you could say do it as soon as... Pardon?
You're talking about year-end?
For anyone who does the CCNA, first of all, each group will have to pick 2 members. They will have to send notice and meet because there's going to be a sunshine meeting. And then they have to advertise nationally for a consultant, give a certain time to wait for them to come back, and then schedule meetings to analyze them. So I think you're talking 3 months here.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman? We've got to get the answers early in 2009. We've got to get working on it so we can come up with a position. We're not going to be jammed into a corner where we have to make a decision that's sort of a knee-jerk kind of thing.
That's a good point.
We need the time.
When do you want the information by? When would you like to have that?
We have to have the package together by the middle of next year.
Middle of next year.
That's right.
We're good? Will that time frame meet? Okay.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
Sorry. If we take 3 months just to pick the consultant, it seems to me that doesn't give them much time. I mean, that gives them a total of 6 months perhaps, but I don't know if that's enough. But
okay. Mr. Chairman, anybody from any River Shores? Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Soloy.
I think we probably can move this reasonably quickly. I think that the City of Vero Beach has just completed a rate study. I think most of the information that the consultant would need is probably readily available. I think we today can direct our staff to try to get comparable information together. I know that on the financial information, they'll probably be ready within a week or so. And I think that any other information that is necessary, once if we direct the 2 utility directors to sit down and brainstorm for a bit, that after that meeting, the county could probably have all the information they need ready within a month or so. And if we give that direction.
It's not the information. I think what it is the RFQ and going through.
No, I understand. What I'm saying is, if we direct staff today to get this information together, from the day we hire a consultant, that consultant will be ready to go. Often when you hire a consultant, it takes them 3 to 6 months just to get the information together. Mm-hmm. I believe that given the process the City of Vero Beach has just completed, and if the county goes ahead and mirrors a process similar to that now, that 3 months from now when we hire the consultant, he or she will be ready to go, and so there will be no delay. And in that case, I think that consultant will then be able to put together a proper report.
Well, we'd like to hear from you as to what kind of proposal you're ready to make to us by the middle of next year, so we have some time to consider it, and maybe we're going to have to do further outside sourcing to get the information we need to make our decision.
Sure. I would
expect. We need the time, and we don't have a lot.
Okay.
That's a reasonable target, I think.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Petunik.
To save a lot of time, I think if each jurisdiction would pick its 2 members for this committee right now and schedule a meeting, they could meet next week and start the process of this consultant defining what kind of consultant they want and how to get one.
Okay. So then, I don't have a problem with that, but I don't know who I'd choose. So,
I think we still have an open motion on the floor.
Yes. Thank you,
We have to vote yet.
Yeah, we have a motion on the floor.
Any more discussion?
And second, any more discussion?
No, at one point we have to discuss the financing of this. I hope this takes place this morning.
Yes, it will. It's going to be item number 6.
So we vote on our motion?
What's that? Yep. Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. So at this point, we've got, Mayor Ava, would you please repeat that resolution one more time?
I move that the City of Vero Beach agree to participate in the process of obtaining an independent consultant to investigate the consolidation, cooperation, or partnership, and that a Consultants Competitive Negotiation Act Committee be appointed consisting of 2 members each from Indian River County, the Town of Indian River Shores, the City of Vero Beach, and that the committee bring back a recommendation for a consultant with a scope of work and price. The 3 jurisdictions could then reconvene to consider the committee recommendation, and the subject would be water, wastewater reuse.
And the only thing I would say in that now, is in effect, I would say, would be everybody, not just the city of Vero Beach. It would be the Indian River County and Indian River Shore at the very beginning, after the formal action that we've just taken.
Yes, that was my point.
All right. Is there any further discussion before we move on to talking about the price of it?
The only concern I have with the motion there, it's an even number.
Well,
And that would be my only concern about that. If they reach some of an impasse, I don't know how to resolve it, because it's...
We could throw the city of Fellsmere in and admit that there's tie.
Oh, okay.
I mean, they're a stakeholder in it, but not nearly to the point that the other municipalities are. Jason, or anybody else, I mean, y'all tell me, that's just an idea.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I mean, the fact is, it's 3 governmental units.
Sure.
And I'd have a hard time believing that any governmental unit is going to disagree with itself. So, we can have 6 members on the committee, but for the final vote, give each governmental unit 1 vote.
Yeah.
Point well taken.
There you go. Sorry about that, Jason. Okay, all right, so then we have a motion to resolution for us to move forward with water, sewer, and irrigation, and then to hire the consultant. Now, I guess really the next part is I don't want to hire and give them a blank check. I'm sure, as I've heard some individuals speak about the price of what we're looking at here. And I don't know the prices necessarily on this, if anybody's got any expertise, or if anybody's utility director has any expertise on this as far as what they think it would cost to do this kind of a study. I know Mr. Olson's out there. Eric, do you have any expertise on what we should expect?
Can I interject?
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, it's already in the agreement that these 6 people from the 3 government bodies would bring back a recommendation for a consultant with a scope of work and price. That's already in the agreement.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
According to Tom Cadden, our former mayor, who has been working on this matter, his estimation is that it would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $75,000.
Okay.
Just for public information.
What's that?
That's just for your general information.
Okay, all right. And those costs to be divided by 3. I mean, we're not going to know that until we get the project back, I guess, and if we're dividing it 3 ways, which is what the general understanding's been here, if I'm not mistaken.
Wesley, let's go back to, are we ready to set up the committee now, make the appointment?
That was a part of the resolution. It was, as a matter of fact.
Now?
If you feel comfortable with your 2 representatives, yes.
We're ready to go.
Okay. The 2 representatives from the Indian River Shores on the committee to choose the consultant are?
Yeah, we'll have 2 council members, Jerry here and Mike Ushner.
Okay. And from the city?
On my recommendation, of course, I have to get the council approval, is to appoint Rob Bolton, our utility director, and Monty Falls, our public works director.
Okay. Okay. City council, y'all have any issues with that?
I have none.
Okay. Commissioners, what's your pleasure?
I would recommend our utilities director, Eric Olson, and Commissioner Slaughter.
That's what you guys are responsible for.
Okay. I think I'd rather see Jason Brown on there than Commissioner Slaughter. Don't take it wrong, but that's just my personal opinion.
I'm good with that.
They have to worry about
That way we've got our finance guy and our utilities guy.
My opinion as well.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that, Commissioner Slaughter. You can sit in on it.
We'll be there.
Because those are going to be really, it's about the service and the price, and I think those are going to be the 2 people that have the pulse on it better than anybody. Yes, Mr. Batunik.
If I could suggest that you actually set a meeting now, then that'll satisfy the public records law, and they can meet as early as next week or whenever you choose.
Fine by us.
Okay. Then have them, can we just say have them meet within the next 7 calendar days? Or you can go ahead, I don't know their schedules is what I'm...
Well, if you say it that way, they'll have to give public notice in the newspaper or something.
Okay. All right.
Why don't you just pick a date, let's say a week from today at 9:30 at the
City council.
They'll be in the middle of a commission meeting. Do y'all have a council meeting?
Pick another date then.
Today's Thursday.
Oh, hello. You're right. Next Thursday, I'm good with that.
And you can say at the county...
Y'all make that? I guess we could vote on our appointees, since there has been a little bit of discrepancy. Y'all weren't all in unanimous agreement on ours. Let's go ahead. All those in favor of having Eric Olson and Jason Brown serve as the two members representing the county in this process, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Commissioner. All right, at this time, we've got the individuals to move forward. Yes, sir, Mr. Aaron.
Raise a point that our town council meeting's next Thursday.
Okay.
We meet in the afternoon.
You meet in the afternoons? What a.m., 9 o'clock in the morning?
3:30.
No, but y'all meet in the p.m.
afternoon we meet. So morning would be fine, then we can report back to our council.
Well, we'll have a meeting next Thursday at 9 o'clock.
In what place?
You know what? I'm easy. It could be at the I would not suggest this far out for all municipalities, but I would meet at the city. It's halfway between the two.
All right, we'll meet in the city conference room on the second floor of City Hall at, was it 9:30?
9 o'clock?
9 o'clock next Thursday.
Okay, and they'll start the RFQ process?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And one other question I have, could we get a hard copy of everything that's being discussed here very quickly?
Absolutely. Misty, Mayor, if you would give Misty a copy of what you have there, that way we'll go ahead and get the minutes of this thing. Okay.
The city clerk.
All right, thank you, Tim.
Take care of that.
All right.
We certainly need a copy of the motion.
Yes, and the copy of the motions, and we'll have that, and that'll be me. I will do my best to get that to you by the end of today. You should have it. Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Would it behoove us to appoint a temporary chair of this committee just in case there's a schedule conflict so that somebody is in charge to kind of make decisions?
What I would like to do at this point is time for us, in my opinion, to back off of this and let the 6 individuals form their committee, set their schedule, and move forward. And typically when you appoint a committee, I'd like to let them choose the chair. But
That's why I said temporary, just until they can meet, but if, just to give a direction between now and next Thursday.
Yes, you want to find Commissioner O'Brien, would you like to serve as the temporary chair of that committee just in case?
I'd like to recommend Mr. White as the temporary chair.
All right, Mr. White, until such time they get together and have another meeting, you might be selected chairman then, but until that time, if there's any changes, you will be the chairman if you're okay.
Second that.
Okay.
Are you guys okay with that?
Yep. All we're doing is just for somebody to make a decision after this meeting if we need to. He'll be the point man and the chairman of the committee. Okay.
Mr. Charlie.
Mr.
Charlie.
Everything was going good until the lawyer got involved.
Charlie, what's your opinion on that?
You have to do something to get that billable out.
Yes, sir, Mr. Kennedy.
We have a bit of a problem over here because of sunshine.
Right.
2 members on the same committee, 2 of our people, so I guess we're going to have to pull one of them off.
Okay. It's your choice how you'd like to go about
Is that
it.
not correct?
Well, actually, this meeting will be a sunshine meeting with notice and all that, so you can have 2 if you would like. It's just that they can't talk to each other outside of that meeting. So you may wish to appoint a staff member instead of one of the council member if you have one.
Good. You're still as is.
Okay, yeah, I mean, because once the committee, yes, even that committee would operate in the sunshine.
Yes, sir.
So the 2 staff members really shouldn't talk to each other about it until it gets aired out. Okay. Everybody good? Everybody clear? Okay. We did the cost share all in the one resolution. And Mayor Abel, thank you for your leadership in that. You've made this meeting that could have drug on forever in a direction that I don't think anybody wanted to be able to move. I will allow for a public comment if there's anybody that would like to speak. Yes, Mr. Winchester. Welcome.
I am delighted to see that you're moving in the direction that you're moving. I guess I should identify myself for the record. Warren Winchester. I live at 1845 Tarpon Lane in Vero Beach. I'm on the City Finance Commission, but I am not here today representing anybody except myself. I'm both a city taxpayer and a county taxpayer. I was very disappointed last Tuesday to see the clumsiness or the awkwardness of which the chairman came to the city council, and we were certainly off kilter on what we were trying to do. Wesley spent about an hour, and I guess it's good that he comes from a dairy farming background, because he shoveled for a while from this side, and he shoveled for a while from that side, and when he left, he was very perplexed, and I understand that. There are three agreements. All three of those agreements were signed during the period of time that Commissioner Wheeler was on the county commission. In fact, he signed one of those agreements as chairman of the board. I am disappointed in all three commissions that you have not pulled those out and read them and familiar with them, because you should be very familiar with them before you start. And it's pretty simple. The city of Vero Beach owns all the Cross River lines south of the Basso Causeway. They own all the lines in South Beach. And when the contract expires or the franchise expires, if the county wants to buy those lines, they have to get an appraisal or go to mediation, but they have to do some process where they have to buy those lines. There's currently, so that you know what you're dealing with, because it does impact on Indian River Shores, and it impacts on the South County customers, and it certainly impacts on the city of Vero Beach customers. I'm not quite sure where the city of Vero Beach is, but at budget time, there was roughly $15 million of debt on that system. I think they've taken additional loan out for $10 million already. Have you taken that out? Not yet, but you're planning to.
It's up in the air.
It's up in the air now. But there's debt and there's ownership involved. And so when you start talking about whether or not you want to consolidate, there are more issues than just saying consolidate. Now, we've had several comments from elected officials, they should just sell the land down there and they can finance the connection that way. Those comments are inappropriate, and everyone knows, if they've been around the city of Vero Beach very long, that if anything happens and the power plant is torn down or the wastewater treatment plant is torn down, that land becomes parkland. And Tom, could you put that picture up that I asked you to put up? Just flip it up there. Behind and driving this, and it's been going on for 2 or 3 years, continuous inquiries and comments by people trying to develop it. On the west or the left side of that picture, you have the Vero Beach Power Plant. In the middle is the 17th Street Bridge. Just south of that is the wastewater treatment plant. South of that is Fairlane Harbor. There are roughly 65 acres in those 3 tracts of land. If the wastewater treatment plant disappears, and I'm not saying that wouldn't be a good thing, but you immediately are going to find roughly 230 residents in that mobile home park that are also going to be displaced. They're going to be displaced because the land then becomes viable for high-rise condos. There will also be a push to further sell the land that the wastewater plant treats on. So when you start making these decisions, make sure you look at the elephant in the room once in a while as well, because the elephant in the room is there. That's part of what's going on with the push to sell the property, It does not need to be a part of this discussion. But there is debt involved, and there is significant infrastructure involved that the city has paid for. Now you can say, well, that's too bad, but Mr. Wheeler can remember, and some of the rest of you can remember, when the county hardly had a pot to boil water in and didn't have a window to throw it out of. And these things didn't happen because the city went out and solicited business. They happened because the county came to the city and says, we can't do this and we want to develop the property, can you help us? So the city of Vero Beach was the organization that was willing to take the risk, to let the bonds, to borrow the money, to do the development, and do the things that allowed the Barrier Island to be developed. So don't throw the baby out with the bathwater when you start looking at how this happened. And don't accuse the city of trying to take over. You know, in my own view, and Mr. Wheeler assures me isn't, but take care of all the utilities is the same thing that Charter was going to do a couple of years ago. He says he'll never mention the word charter again. But if he takes over everything without a charter vote, he doesn't have to mention the word charter, does he? Doesn't happen. Gary's laughing at me.
I might say.
But Gary, you did sign this, and I'm disappointed you don't remember it. I wish you did.
That was 20-some years ago.
Well, it wasn't 25 years ago, it was 20 years ago.
20-some years ago.
20 years ago, 1989. You signed as chairman.
Maybe you should be our consultant.
I don't want to be, but I'll be there.
Mr. Winchester, thank you very much for your
I
comments.
just want you to understand that there's a lot more involved that you need to look at than just regionalization. You've got a lot more ground to dig, and I thank you for bearing with me.
Well, thank you, and I certainly do appreciate your time and you staying active, having the wisdom of a former city council person and mayor of Vero Beach involved in this is going to certainly do nothing but assist us in this process. And exactly what you were talking about with the cooperation between the municipalities of Indian River County and the city of Vero Beach and the great things they've accomplished and is where we are today. I agree with that 100%. And I'm looking at the great cooperation from this point forth to being able to bring us to the next level to have the most efficient system possible. What that'll be, I really don't know at this time. And yes, it was awkward and cumbersome and shifting last Tuesday night. It's a whole lot different catching arrows than sending them. But I want you to know that this whole meeting didn't predicate on me just not being able to sleep at 2 o'clock in the morning, waking up and saying, I got a great idea, let's have a joint meeting. It was predicated by an invite from the city manager and the mayor, sitting down with them and getting the indication from them when we were sitting there that this is something that they would have liked to have looked in, would not mind looking into. And that's really what started this whole conversation, moving it to the next level at that point. And so I appreciate their leadership in this, and I appreciate the civility that we've been able to have at this point, and I think it'll continue. So just wanted to say thank you for you being here and shedding some light on it.
If anybody thought this was just a matter of sorting out who owns the pipes or something like that, they're really missing the boat. Right. This thing is all financial. It's all property that's owned by two entities, either the city or the county, and how do you merge those things? And both you guys are carrying a lot of paper. And who's going to handle the paper? That's what the issue is. It's all not so much pipes or water plants or whatever.
And I think that the mayor really sheds an interesting light on this. If you look at it from the point of Indian River Shores, they're looking at it, in my opinion, the way the municipality should be looking at it. They are looking at it at what is it going to cost them. We have the tendency to put our blinders on and say, what are we going to do to protect our turf? And I think that if we look at it from the client standpoint, which is everybody that's inside our municipalities, not which is going to be best for which system, but how is it going to be the best to provide those services, that's exactly the standpoint that they're looking through, and I applaud you bringing that point up. Bottom line. That's it. Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a couple points. One is the idea that all the commissioners haven't looked at the franchise agreements is silly. Mr. Commissioner Wheeler may not have. I've read them and reread them a number of times. Other commissioners have read them. I think that comment was out of place. As I've probably been the commissioner who's most often talked about the different uses of the land upon which the wastewater utility sits, I want to address that. I've taken the position from the start that that land is an asset of the utility, and that I was told it was an asset of the utility by the city finance director. It's my feeling that if the sewer and water utility is an enterprise fund, then that asset ought to be used in any way possible to support that enterprise fund. If it were the city building its own plant off the river or part of consolidation, it's my feeling that that asset of the utility ought to be used to lower that price. Now, I understand that it's now under the city charter scheduled to be a park. If the city wants it to remain a park, I think that's great. But in that case, the general fund ought to buy it from the utility and pay for it. Over the last decades, it's been the utility customers who have paid for the system, and that ought to be used as an asset for the benefit of the utility customers. For my own part, I've spent a lot of time going through the city's consultants' reports, and as a resident of the city of Vero Beach, I find it difficult to see how the city of Vero Beach has a viable utility business going forward. I welcome the idea of having a third party correct me. I've never said that I am right in this. That's just the view I've come based on my own research. I think it'll be great, not just for me if I'm proven wrong, but great for all the citizens of the city of Vero Beach, of Indian River Shores, and Indian River County. So again, I'm pleased as can be that we now have a more open and transparent process going forward, and I think that at the end of the day, all of the citizens of our county are going to benefit.
Mr. Moocher, you wanted to speak. Deborah, Ms. Fleming, do you want to add
I was
something?
going to ask Charlie, his statement that the land is the utility authority.
Well, I think we all agree the title to the land is held in the city council. It was acquired many years ago before anybody here, and a lot of tax money and city effort went into it. It eventually became dedicated to sewer and water service. And yes, most of it was paid by the revenues of the system, but it's more of an accounting issue than a legal title issue. The city owns that land.
And I appreciate y'all's conversation, but I don't right now want to decide who does or who doesn't own that property, and whether it's going to be high rises or, to me, that's not a part of the resolution. Mr. Moocher.
Mark Moocher, Indian Monarch Road in the city. I agree a lot about what Warren said, not about Wesley, but a lot of the other stuff. But I would encourage two things. First of all, having served on an RFQ committee similar to this, I like Gary's suggestion of getting the staff together, if not before. It looks like now it would have to be concurrently, so that you can target a scope of work much more easily than you could by just the lay people. Well, actually, you've got staff on both sides, but I'd like to have that go in at maybe a deeper level so that you can get a good scope of work for the consultant. The other thing is, I'd like you to think about considering wastewater separately and before the potable water and irrigation issues, because there seems to be no crossover between wastewater and potable water. If there were to be a consolidation, I believe it should be sewer first and then maybe water later, because at least within the city, it's my understanding there's almost no connection other than at the customer service and billing level between the two systems. And it seems like wastewater ought to come first. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, sir, in the back. Name and address for the record, please.
Dr. Stephen Faraday, 2120 Captain's Walk. I'd like to compliment the county, the Shores, Vero Beach, and Fellsmere for getting together and focusing on a regional issue. I do believe that there is so much misinformation and misrepresentation of issues. That should be a focus of the consultant. And perhaps as part of the RFQ, there should be inclusion of a provision for getting outside, independent, legal advice as to the ownership of the infrastructure. Who owns it, looking at the past history of the various agreements over the period of time. I do think that's very important. Each of the jurisdictions can have their own opinions. I think we do need outside legal advice included in that RFQ.
If there's a dispute, I would agree with that. If we agree that the city owns it, or if the city agrees that they don't own it, I don't see why we would need outside advice on that. But in the event there's a dispute that might rise to the next level, but let's hope we don't have that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else wish to speak? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. I know I would apologize for such a short meeting, but that's not a bad thing. So if there's no further discussion to be transacted at this time, I now declare this meeting adjourned.